got a loan modification, a successful permanent loan modification, where at the end of 25 years he owes Bank of America $440,000. And the building is only worth $200,000 now. So if that's a successful loan modification, God save us, right? So principal reduction feels like, and the fact that we're able to win it and get people's homes back is a tremendous thing that brings people into our movement. But what gives us the leverage to get principal reduction? And that is the arena of post-foreclosure eviction defense. So we understood 4.5 years ago as tenant activists that we looked at the eviction courts and we realized that the biggest evictors in Boston Housing Court, the biggest single evictor was Deutsche Bank, followed by Chase and Bank of America and Wells Fargo and all these people. They were the biggest evictors in our housing court. And they were evicting about 2,400 families a year. And they were evicting them all, no fault. Under Massachusetts law, you don't need a reason to evict somebody. They were evicting 2,400 people, maybe 5,000 individuals, in the city of Boston per year. You can imagine if 5,000 people lost their homes through no fault of their own, through a hurricane, it would be front page news in Germany. Here it's happening every year because of a human-made disaster. And we said to ourselves, we know how to fight evictions. We're tenant organizers. We do this stuff. So we launched an eviction defense campaign. And that has mushroomed to the point that there are now over 100 people in our meetings every single Tuesday in Boston, 40 or 50 at our meetings in East Boston, and 20 or 30 at our brand new meetings in Brockton. And these are going on in 9 locations. So this is building a mass base. And these are almost all people who are directly affected by foreclosures or living in buildings there after foreclosure. And there are a few activists that come to help us out, but these are mainly the people directly affected. So in order to do this, we have a method that we refer to as the sword and the shield. We actually in our office have an actual sword and shield, which we trot out at the beginning of every meeting. Some of you have been there and seen it. Shield says no one leaves, but the shield is legal defense, and the sword is public protest and public pressure. And in the beginning of every meeting, new people who have come to our meetings are asked to stand and from the very first meeting get rid of their shame about foreclosure. Get rid of the feeling that it was my fault, I did something wrong. Stand up and say who your lender is, where you are in the foreclosure fight. We hand them the sword. We ask them to raise the sword into the air. We ask them if you're willing to fight to stay in your home. And of course everybody says yeah, sometimes meekly, but they say yeah. And the entire crowd yells out, and we'll fight with you. So our meetings are very, very emotional. Crying, chanting, singing, shouting. They're more like revivals, like I say, than information transfer meetings, although there are lots of information transfer. And part of all that emotional process is the process of people redefining who they are in the world as moral actors. And saying that, I heard this thing on Sunday sometimes, I am my brothers and sisters' keeper, but my God, I never thought that I could actually implement it in real life. Here, in this movement, there is a culture of implementing it in real life. Of saying, I care as much about my neighbor as myself, and I'm going to fight for their home for that reason. I love my neighbor as myself, and I'm going to love them so much I'm going to support them against the banks. This is a very, very powerful thing in our society for some of the reasons Paul mentioned, that to get rid of all the acculturated baggage of individualism to say I'm going to stand with my neighbor is a very powerful thing. To make this sword and the shield work, we have a third prong of the stool, which we define as alternative financing. We work with a nonprofit bank, and we're developing more that actually give mortgages again to people who have been foreclosed, but at the real value of their home. And they funded over 100 families to buy their homes back at about 55% of loan value. The redefault rate of those really bad actors who got foreclosed is about 1%. So it overwhelms every other program, and it shows that if you give people a good product with principal reduction, de facto principal reduction, they will perform like champions. So to sum up, there are 5 elements, what we sometimes call the 5 masses, 5 elements to what you do to implement a program like this. One is mass outreach. We visit all of the buildings in Boston that are scheduled for a foreclosure sale auction, which is when the auctioneer comes out, takes the home back. So we visit all those buildings, we tell them you don't have to move, come to our meeting. We call them every week or two after they come into our movement. We make thousands of phone calls. Mass outreach. The second is mass meetings. Don't take a service mentality. Bring people into the meeting and say, we're not going to solve your problem. We're going to give you a method, but you're going to solve your problem. We're going to solve each other's problems with us being involved. Through public pressure, legal defense, and understanding your rights. Mass meetings. And those mass meetings have components that are, again, not just information transfer, but planning rallies, summing up rallies, and having political discussion of all kinds. Third mass is mass casework. Having everybody realize that they don't have an individualized case, they have a case that relates to everybody else's case. So when we go out in front of Lavette Seal's house tomorrow, we're going out there to support Lavette, but we're going to be saying to her, thank you for letting us build our movement in front of your house. So that understanding that everybody who's coming out to Lavette's house is not coming there just to support her, but to support them. Because fighting on Lavette's case solves their problem. That's how we've made progress. Fourth thing is mass actions. And there's this sheet out there that some of you may have gotten that has a whole bunch of actions on the back that I won't go into right now, but we can talk about it later if you want. But mass actions of every kind, from protests at auctions to discourage investors from buying the house, kind of like those old Depression things, to eviction blockades where we stand in the doorway and risk arrest. We've done 32 eviction blockades against the banks, and we've won 26 of them. So that's not a bad record. Countless vigils. We do about 2 or 3 actions against the bank every week, just in Boston. And the final is mass political discussion, which is making sure that people understand the roots of the crisis and having political discussion about all kinds of issues and movements far beyond foreclosure and far beyond housing, having to do with labor, environmentalism, youth, and every other thing we can think of. Because how leaders develop and stay in the movement is to understand how their individual struggle fits into the whole. So I think I'll stop there and I'll turn it back over and we'll have discussion as we go on. Thank you very much.